is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess. Yeah. Life is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess. Yes. Life is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess. I'm trying, I'm crying, I feel like I'm dying. I'm doing my best.
Welcome back to Being Human and Other Shit.
Game show host.
We are on the ancestral homeland of the Nisenan people. We acknowledge them as the past, present, and future caretakers of this land. And we have a pretty fun episode today. It's just the two girls.
We never get to do this.
Just the two queers.
Yeah. I did my actual copy.
Yeah. So I pretty much, we just have a Q&A with Staci, and she's going to be the voice of all teachers in all the land. So no pressure at all. I don't know
how many people would agree with that or actually like that.
We'll see. We have 50-50 split.
Yeah.
But essentially, we just asked our friends, family, and followers to submit questions or stories, anything related to teaching, teachers. And Staci's gonna be the voice of answering. At least your perspective, I'm sure. So we have a ton of questions. My cup filleth over, so let's get to it.
Well, let me say first of all to start, just so people know, because there is a huge divide between general education teachers and special ed teachers. So I'm going to speak from the perspective of an early childhood special education teacher. I think I've said in here, I'm sure multiple times, my mom is a special ed teacher, 22 or 23 years. She does emotionally disturbed. So I think just some stories off the top of my head that I have of her. So a lot of my perspective is from SPED. So if anybody that's a gen ed teacher listens to this is like, wow, she has a lot to say about gen ed. I mean, unfortunately, there's just a huge divide. So yeah.
Cool. I think there's a mix of like questions and stories in here too. So I'm glad you are talking about what your perspective is going to be. So let's kick it off because we have a ton of questions. Oh, this is a great one. How do you spend your summer breaks?
Ooh, okay. So I've been teaching 10 years. I was at a non-public for 6, and I've been at my public school now for 4. And my non-public, we didn't get full summers off. We had like a couple weeks in June and then like a couple weeks in August. So a lot of what I would do, because it sounds so funny to people who work year round, but like I would only have like a solid 3 weeks off at a time. So
that's it's
a lot of time to go anywhere. So I'm gonna go to like Tahoe and camp and stuff. Last summer I did the shit right? Like you and I got to take our Palm Springs trip. I went to Chicago for a week, went to Fort Bragg. And then obviously this summer, like the day that I'm out, I'm going to Idaho. One of my nieces is getting married, my niece Maya, who I love, her and Elliot. They're amazing. And then come back Sunday, and then we go to Thailand on Tuesday. So I really like to, I mean, I think like my summers represent my whole life where like I'm always kind of doing too much.
Yeah.
Right. And then also with a very good mix of like doing absolutely nothing. So
I think you really take advantage. You're good about taking advantage of, you work hard and then you play hard. So you have that balance, I feel like, and you deserve to go do whatever you want to do and, spend your life however you want to spend it. And I love it. I love that you always take advantage of your summers every single
Hell yeah, dude. And I felt really good, like going back to school. I think for every teacher, no matter what gen ed or sped, when you are going back, there's this like, it's like the Sunday scaries times 1,000. Because you just like, there's no teacher that ever goes in like knowing what to expect for the next school year. It's a lot of times we get back and it's like, oh, this changed, bomb. You have this many kids coming brand new on the first day. You have 2 days or 3 days before the school year, and 2 of them are going to be in trainings that are completely irrelevant to what you need to know. And 1 day with your brand new staff to train them in 6 hours. So it's a lot of like fast moving anxiety. I also started at a public school in October 30th, 2019, and got a full caseload of kids by, I think, like after Thanksgiving break, and then was shut down for COVID.
What's crazy too is like you're dealing with a demographic of kids that are already have difficulty with change. And so day one for them is probably crazy and chaotic. And then on top of that, like a normal teacher is already feeling like that, what I mean?
It's really hard because I think for me, like I'll speak on behalf of my ECSE teachers. it's hard because for us, like specifically, we work with the autism community. We also have kids that have like other health impairments. At my caseload of 12, I probably have like two kids that are verbal, but their articulation's really like hard, you know? So we're dealing with parents who have newly diagnosed
Yeah.
kiddos. So a big part of our job is the grief phase with these parents.
Yeah.
So that's another anxiety because it's like we don't really know what we're going to get. I think for me, my personality works well because I do have such like a in your face type of personality that most parents respond really well to me because they could tell, like, I think with having that type of personality comes the air of like, I know what I'm doing. I do, but
confidence.
like, I'm not meek. So I'm not coming in like, okay, well, we're hoping. I'm like, yo, this is what we're doing. This is the standards. This is what I expect from you. This is what you're going to get from me, while also like providing that little cushion of like, hey, like I hear you, I see you. I always use the like, I'm not a mom, I don't want to have kids, I can't even imagine. Like,
Yeah.
how are you taking care of yourself? So a lot of people forget that a lot of our parents are newly, dealing with newly diagnosed kids. And it's no matter, you could be the most autism awareness flat, waving,
Flying.
yeah, flag flying person. Sorry, we can't burn that. But it doesn't matter because it's still something you don't wish on your kids. So like there's that whole piece too.
Yeah. 100%. That's I don't know. I love that you are so compassionate with that side of it too, where, they are in this grieving space.
Well, to be honest with you, I have like I loved my non-public job. I never left there like, oh man, like I got to get out of here. I loved it there. I feel like I'm an exceptional teacher at my public school because of that job.
Yeah.
But the school that I went to, I'm like, what karmic like contract did I sign? Because okay, good example. We did an 8-hour training yesterday to add an authorization. So most of my team was on this training and we had to do a presentation at the end in our group. So it was like a 2-minute presentation. And I was in a group with like myself and like a couple other people from my team, but most of them were in this group right after me and they did a rap. That was their and I remember I literally was like clapping the whole time and like, yeah. And like after everybody's like, we were just looking for Staci's reaction because I'm just like, I'm so grateful to be a part of this freaking team. Like,
I love it.
I'm happy at my job because of this team, and like my principal, she's just insane, amazing. So it makes a big difference to have work with people that you love, like any job.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference for sure.
Oh yeah.
All right, you ready? What fears do you experience?
Like for myself?
I think let's go with what fears do you have? What fears do you experience related directly to teaching?
My biggest fear as a teacher, and I think I could generalize this, is a part of my job is what we say in California, it's called the least restrictive environment. So I teach what in my district called a bridge class, which is a moderate severe class. My kids most of them have a lower skill set. They need a lot of help, a lot of hand over hand prompting. They're not potty trained, a lot of adult assistance. And when we get a kid, once we do an assessment, an assessment for most of us, we all do them as like 2 hours, 3 hours at max, that we'll hang out with this like stranger kid with their parents and do this standardized testing that we try to get like, to see what their skill set is. It's so dumb. It doesn't make sense because these kids don't know us. A big part of our job is, like building rapport with our students. I can't do that with the kid I just met. So we try to offer the least restrictive environment. Sometimes I'll get kids that come in and I'm like, you're way too advanced for this class, right? But our fear is always, am I moving them on too early? If I send them, like for me, I'm a teacher with two paras. If I was to say, hey, this is not the least restrictive environment, they need to go somewhere with less support because they can handle it. We're always trying to push them, right? When I send them to like an inclusion program where it's, 12 special ed kids, potentially 12 gen ed kids to get that exposure, and then like, less staff, it's always like, are they going to be able to keep up?
Yeah.
So that's my number one fear as a teacher, myself and my team have the responsibility of recommending what program we think is best for that specific kid. They're all on an IEP, an individualized education plan. And so I'm always like, oh man, like I hope I'm making the right choice. I hope I'm not setting this kid up for failure. That's just a weight that I think we all carry.
I would say, I would imagine even like general ed patients. I'm in dental land.
Yeah, dental land.
Teachers probably feel the same way. You know, you have the lower performing students, and then you really, at the end of the day, have to make the decision, like, if I push them forward and move them on to the next grade or whatever, like, are they just going to struggle for the rest of their like schooling?
Yeah,
it's probably very anxiety ridden, I'd imagine.
It's a huge anxiety, and it's also like some kids, like I had a little boy last year that me and my two amazing pairs at the time, Millie and Kayla, were like, this kid's got to go to inclusion. This kid's got to go to inclusion. He's amazing, but he had behaviors like a toddler. You know, he's super stubborn, and would have like non-compliance where if we're like, come on, like do this, like no, and just like walk away from us. I'm like, okay. But what they say, at least in my district, is behavior doesn't impede placement, meaning if this kid academically or like routines wise is ready, but has some little like toddler behaviors, we're not going to keep them back. But what they don't realize is that can hold up a whole class.
Yeah.
So he got there, and, I obviously like checked in on mom the first couple months, and she's like, he's doing okay, but it's not you. I'm not saying this to be arrogant, but like a lot of the teachers on my campus, most of them are veteran teachers. So we get that a lot where parents are like, oh man, like this program, I agreed with it. I signed. They have to literally sign a document saying that they agree, but the teacher may not be the right fit.
Yeah.
Right. It's like we talk about a lot on here. It's all about connection. And sometimes I send kids and I'm texting parents. I've had parents text me like, I don't think this was a good choice. I'm like, give it 90 days. Typically it's fine, but it's about connection. If the parent doesn't connect to the teacher, if the kids don't like the teacher, like it makes it really challenging.
I mean, I know that firsthand, just being a student in this world,
right?
It's like, I could not for the life of me, like I sucked at math until I got into college. And then I just had the most amazing teacher and everything clicked. And I was like, what the fuck? And I don't know if I was just more mature too and like ready to be open. I'm sure part of it is us as the student too. Yeah. But I was like, how do I go all of these years without like really grasping, algebra or whatever? And it's like, something just clicked.
Well, I think like any profession, it's like everybody overgeneralizes anything. Do I think there's teachers that are in it for the summers off? Of course I do.
Yeah.
Have I had shitty teachers? Hell yeah, like so many, but same, right? Like there's certain teachers that I would have a same subject that I didn't like, and then they made it fun. It was like, oh, okay, like
I can get down with this.
Yeah. It's also like my own dilemma, like that we were talking about that I'm going through now is like, I'm burnt out, right? Like I'm burnt out as a teacher and I'm trying to figure out what my next step is, whether it's in education or not. But at the same time, it's like, it's works for my life right now. And it gets challenging because it's kind of, I mean, to be honest, it's kind of like stripping, except you're not making money. It's just like, it's like the benefits are great, but also it's like the negatives are very negative.
That's the Teachers Association new slogan. It's like being a stripper, but without the money.
It's like being a stripper, but you're still broke.
You a broke-ho.
Exactly.
All right. Was No Neck Jensen your favorite teacher?
It's freaking Joey, dude. No Neck Jensen was a PE teacher that we all had. I can literally see her right now.
Was this high school?
No, this is elementary school. So like me and most of my cousins all went to the same elementary, middle, high school, right? Like Lodi Small. We all went to Washington, go Wildcats. But like, and loved it. But everybody had the same PE teacher. And we called her No Neck Jensen because she literally looked like a potato with earrings. She was
so a bully ass kid.
She was so mean. She was such a bitch. Like I hated her. No, she was
if she's still favorite. Did Evan say if she was still teaching?
I want to say Evan said he like the first couple years he was there. I think he had her. I don't know. She was horrible. Worse. No, she was not my favorite teacher. She was the worst teacher.
She was my least favorite.
Yeah.
All right. What is important to you in a school culture / environment?
Oh my God. So I feel like again, where I'm at, we really have done. So I think a lot of people have stayed at this school for a really long time, too long. There's still a couple lingerers that were like ready to move on, that just are like not a part of the culture we've created. But I think in the last 3 years, I've been there since we've gone back from COVID, I think my campus as a whole has created a really positive, like growth mindset community. And I think that's why everybody's happy. I mean, I've had multiple people tell me this year, this is the best year I've ever had here.
That's awesome.
We do a lot of social committee stuff. We just did like an Easter egg hunt where we split people up in teams, like the adults. We split people up in teams and they had to like find letters and they put the word together. And then we do like Starbucks cards. We have an option to donate money at the beginning of the year. I made like a coffee bar in one of the rooms. Like it really just is about making sure. I think that as a leader, like you have to make sure people feel heard. And trust me, there are some days as like I'm the teacher in charge on my campus. There's some days people are like complaining to me about shit that I'm like, I want to do what I do to like Talon, Jacqueline, and Raven, like little problem or big problem.
Yeah.
Is this that serious? But it's like to them it is, right? And like they need to and I'm the same way. There's probably 90,000 times I've called you like venting about some stupid drama that I don't even remember. But in that moment,
It was
like
important.
big deal. It was important to me in that moment. So I think that creating a supportive campus is really about like communication. I think it's about getting people together. I think that like the fine art of potlucks people don't do anymore. And like honestly, a simple potluck or even just like everybody chipping in and getting food, if you're like weird about people's cooking, is just to sit and like have a meal together and like joke around and have music playing. Like it's all about the vibe. And I think my campus has done really well. And I will say as a disclaimer, my campus is a preschool only SPED campus. We have one inclusion program, so there is gen ed kids, but the big divide with gen ed and SPED is, you go to your special ed teacher on an elementary campus with primarily like 85% gen ed population. And the secretary knows nothing about IEPs. She doesn't know anything about, a physical therapist coming into my class. And, they're already overloaded themselves. So it's like that creates a very big divide and it doesn't create a cohesive campus. We have so many teachers that were like paras at my campus the last 4 years that are first year teachers this year. One, my homegirl, she finally got to come back. So we're pumped. But like she left her side and was just like, opportunity came up and she took it mid-year, because our campus has done really well about like, creating a really positive culture. And I think a lot of that I'm going to contribute to my boss, Johanna. She just is she's kind of one of those people. I think she's like me in a sense where it's like, what's happening? Everybody's burnout. Let's get everybody donuts. Like no one's happy. Like, what can we do to, she really like, it wasn't long ago that she was also a teacher. So she's not like, here's 5 assessments, like deal with it. She's like, dude, I know this is going to suck. How can I support you?
Yeah.
It's the name of the game, right? Like she just comes at it real. And I think that creates she's a contributing factor to why our campus is so good.
I think you're being humble and not calling yourself out, because being teacher in charge and then ahead of the social committee, like you're part of all the things that you just mentioned and like what is making that culture so great and at times tolerable for some of the other teachers too.
Well, fun fact too, Katie, if you guys are like watching every episode, our friend Katie, who was on the One Tough Mother episode, she was my social committee partner and it was like the straight up dream team. Because Katie's like the dreamer, right? She's like creative and she's silly. She's just the absolute best. And I was the implementer, where she had this crazy, she was like, okay, hear me out. And she'd like give it to me. I'd be like, okay, how can we make this happen? And we do it. And like, that's how I ended up dressing as Cupid last year. I like wore
somebody has a story in here about
Billy.
Something about a diaper. We'll get to that hopefully eventually. I was like, I love seeing all the pictures every time you dress up. Then you'll send it to our like friend group. This one I accidentally cut in half and it was a 2-parter, but
no.
So in a special education classroom, yours specifically, how do you track student progress toward learning? I know that that's probably even more difficult because you're talking about kiddos that are like preschoolers and still trying to figure out life. Like what do those assessments look like?
So for me, my biggest thing, I'm very data driven. I actually had my friend Ellen has like I don't know if she's a student teacher, we'll just say that. In her class who like came into my class, she's coming in once a week now because she's going to be in more of my environment type of class. And she did tell her, like, I don't know if I could take as much data as Staci. But people forget at my non-public, like, it was almost like boot camp. There was no choice. Like, you're working directly with kids and you're taking data at the same time. It's an ABA-driven company. So I always tell my staff, I am understanding of you attempting to, like, wrangle these kids, get any type of response out of them, and also take the data. So I heavily focus on data for my routines. So I run what's called a task analysis. It's basically like, think about when you brush your teeth, right? There's like 10 steps we go through before you brush our teeth. Getting your toothbrush out of the cabinet, if you wet it, putting toothpaste on, blah, blah, blah. It basically is that for like the arrival and the departure. So like open the door, walk in the door, hang up your backpack, open your backpack. It breaks it down. And what I do to make it easy is we work on one step at a time. Some kids come in first day and they're like, Luke, they got it. They don't have one. Some kids, like, they can't even walk from the bus by themselves, right? Like some kids can't even walk from the bus by themselves. So we work on that. And then same in the bathroom, just like going in, taking your diaper off. That's the data I take a lot. We also do what's called discrete trials, which is basically just like taking, if I'm working specifically on a student, identifying like the color red. I'll give objects that are red and then, take my data like plus, minus, or physical prompt, however I had to prompt them. So it's the data part of the job is so technical. And there's a lot of people who do just like plus, minus, or like plus prompt, like if they did it or didn't, like do the best we can. A lot of it's teacher observation. And a lot of my SPED IEP goals that I write, I always include teacher observation. That's a tip for any of you new teachers out there, because it's a technicality that lets me get off by like, I know these kids so well. I'm writing the school to see if they could do it. If I put teacher observation in the like legal goal, then I'm watching them do it.
Yeah.
I can proudly and confidently say that I'm watching them do it. So yeah. Assessments wise, we use the Bergans. Like I said, all assessments are stupid. I can go on a rant about that. I'm not going to. They're all standardized. They're not fair. We don't do it the right way, but it's what we have to do.
Yeah. That's just the school system that we have in general.
Yep.
Have you ever been hit on? I don't know what they want to know, but by a teacher, by a parent, anybody?
I have gotten hit on by other teachers, mostly teachers that come to visit our campus. I think they talk to me on the phone and they're like, she's probably ugly. And then they see me, they're like, whoa,
she's a 10 and a half.
Parent, yeah, definitely. I mean, you always get those parents that are lurking, like you could tell. I could always tell when somebody's trying to like, lay the seed a little bit. It's never parents that are in my classroom. It's always other teachers' parents. But, I just remain professional as I can, which is really hard. I am probably the most inappropriate person. So that's really challenging. But yeah, of course I've gotten hit on.
Have you seen me? All right. If you weren't a teacher, what would you want to do?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. To be honest, I would love to be somebody who travels to different places and reviews like what I think about each place. I would love to do that. I would love more like locally. What I would do is work with like a YMCA or Boys and Girls Club. I would love to do that. Something like run some type of like after school activities, sports programs, just be like an active member and something like a nonprofit that works for kids that like parents have to work, right? Like I think we forget that a lot of parents, and I deal with this a lot in my district. A lot of my parents are single parents. Yeah. It's very rare in my 10-year career to have a two parent household. And how do you think these people are paying the bills? Nobody offers these suggestions. It's don't let people live off welfare and cash aid and food stamps. But it's like, well, what are we supposed to do when these kids are going to school at 8:30 in the morning? And like for my kids, they go from 8:20 to 11. I mean, how could anybody work a job doing that?
Not only that, the cost of living is 6 times more than minimum wage. So it's like,
exactly,
what the fuck are people supposed to do?
So I would love to run some type of center that offers sports, offers art, offers technology. There's actually a program that Millie worked out with her last year she was here, and it was like an adult program, but they offer the classrooms. I'm super proud of Twin Rivers for having this. I'm going to go see it in like a month and I'm pumped. They do like, it's like an adult education. It's called Miles P. Richmond, and Lisa, who runs it, she's also amazing. They do like like one class focuses on gardening. So all this teacher does for the entire year is teaches you. I mean, in special ed, you age out at 22. So people forget that. Yeah. In adult education, you can have students that are up to the age of 22 in the state of California. So they're teaching them how to run a functional garden. That's their class. And then next class, they teach them how to like do coding or websites and video games. And then another class, they cook. So whatever they're growing, and I'm sure obviously supplementing because they can't grow that much, but whatever they're growing, they're also cooking. So they're learning knife skills. They're learning like kitchen basics.
I
So
love
it's
that.
like I would love to have a center or like a program somewhere here in SAC that, with some type of state funding I could run, and parents would be able to leave their kids there and they'd be in a safe environment, learning something. I can't, my mom had us in Latchkey, and like I remember my teacher from Latchkey, and I was like probably 5 or 6. My dad wasn't around, she didn't have a choice, and we went to the Boys and Girls Club and played video games and did all that stuff. And it was like that was very like fundamental years for me.
Yeah, I would love that. I think
Right?
being human should sponsor something
I'd be so into that.
with funding, of course, because we
Yeah,
work.
well.
How do you think students will remember you and your class? Baby
Oh
diaper
my
for
God.
sure.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think that a lot of my students will remember me as just being like silly, but also very stern. Like I think I'm very much like a sour patch kid in life and in work. Like I think everybody kind of knows like I'm not with the shit, like fuck around and find out. But also I'm very weird and silly. I'm like the first one to dress up. I'm the first one to be funny. There's always music playing in my class. Like no matter what, I will always have music on. And it's not like Disney radio. Like I have like Earth, Wind, and Fire playing, like work appropriate, but stuff that like I grew up listening to at my mom's house.
The
So I think,
slaps.
huh?
The slaps.
I got all the slaps going. No, my favorite thing is I'll be like, oh my God, this is like one of my favorite songs. Like, okay, every song is your jam. We know. Like my staff does that all the time. I'm like, shut up. But I think that they'll remember me that way. Just being like the one that they know they're not going to get away with stuff, because kids are hella manipulative. People forget.
Hell yeah.
I don't care if you're on the spectrum, what's going on. Kids know how to play adults. And when you're dealing with kids with autism, I get these parents that are like, I had 2 parents come to open house last year and they brought the kids with them, which I was like, whatever. These kids come straight in, they have their backpacks, put their back, and mom and dad are like, are you kidding me? And I'm like, what's going on? Like, he plays like he has nothing going on at home. I'm like, oh, you're gonna play, dog. You're gonna play. Like, we don't do that around here. Like, you're doing your own. I don't even do it for you. I'll put my hand on your hand and help you do it, but I'm not doing it for you. I didn't grow up in that type of household. So for me, I think being a realistic teacher is what makes it the best. And so I think they'll remember me that way. Being weird.
Being weird. You're also very sweet.
Yeah.
What has your experience been like being a mandated reporter for CPS? Have you had to call CPS on anybody?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks. Honestly, it super sucks because when you actually have to make that call, I mean, you're on the phone for 2 hours. So it's already like I don't want to say this in a negative way, but it's already like the need starts to wear off where you're like, is it that bad? Do I need to be calling CPS? It's also like I've had students where parents a single parent, and kids telling me, like my kids that are verbal and have had the option or have been willing to talk to me, have told me like brother hits me, and they'll call me the B word, or they'll say things that I'm like, this is learned behavior.
Yeah.
Like I've had a kid who told me recently he's gonna put me in the microwave, which I thought was very creative. Kid, he's gonna kill me. He's told me, the thing that triggered me was quit playing with me, bitch, I'll kill you. Quit playing with me. I'm like, that's a grown man talking.
That's a specific thing that the kid has
The
heard.
quit playing with me. It wasn't even the curse words or the microwave. It was the quit playing with me that I was like, man. But then it's like, I look at this kid, I have a relationship with this kid's parent, and I'm like, this person is not abusing their kid. It's this kid's learning it from a sibling who's learning it from somewhere else.
Yeah.
And it's like, do you call CPS on that? Like it's such a hard call. I just recently had CPS pop up on my school for a student, and all the CPS workers, they're in the same position as us. They're overworked, they're underpaid, they're seeing horrific things on like a daily basis, and
yeah,
they're also in the position of having to make these decisions to like take kids away from their parents and put them in a system that's also broken. So it sucks. It's not fun. It's a part of our job. I've had to do it a couple times and it's never processed. Then it's awkward if nothing comes of it, because then parents know it's you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I've been in I've worked in dental offices obviously for the last 13 years, you know that,
Yeah.
but we've also had, and those are also mandated reporters, the
Yeah.
dentists are. And so I remember one case where this girl came in for treatment and she had to be sedated. And when you're sedated, they put a monitor on your toe, on your finger, and like she just was she was just neglected. Like this little girl was had scabs and scars and open wounds and like all over her body. And so she was being beat. And it's hard because then you're like, the parents are saying like she just plays rough and whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And you're like, no, this is one of
Yeah.
those cases where you know something else is going on.
It's so hard too, because I think people forget that it's not just physical abuse that is that it's considered abuse. Like that I get a lot of kids that will flinch, and it's I'm not ever going to condone abuse, obviously, but like working with this population, I don't think that people understand what parents that have kids that are on the autism spectrum go through.
Yeah.
If your kid has like a severe sensory need, it's like they can't go outside if it's too bright. They can't go, like it controls your whole life as a parent. And I think just like anybody else, parents snap. And I think, it's hard because it's like kids also go through so much emotional abuse and verbal abuse, and like it's just sad all around. I think there's a lot of people having kids that are not equipped to have kids, and then you throw in a diagnosis like autism, and it's like, man, it's because there's a lot of people that are like narrow-minded, where it's like, I just like couldn't. How do you not like love a kid and understand? It's like, dude, there's a lot of these parents do love their kids. They're just like at their wits' end.
Yeah,
On
they're
top of trying to
fucking
like,
tired.
yeah, and on top of trying to like live a life that they're not homeless and on the streets. And then you think about like, I had one of my like temporary staff members tell me this story about her daughter being bullied on social media and getting jumped by these girls. She's like 10 years old. I'm like, what? Like, it's just a lot of factors, and CPS is not fun, but I personally like to talk to parents and get as much out of them as I can. I just have a real conversation like, hey, I like to use the word perception a lot because it's kind of a safe word where I'll say, hey, like they're coming in, they're saying this to me, or they're coming in and I'm noticing this, and I'm quiet. I'll just be quiet for a second and they'll kind of give me a bunch of explanations. I'm like, I'm gonna be honest with you, the perception is that there's something abuse, some physical abuse. And then it's the what? And then mad. And I'm like, listen, I'm trying to have a real conversation with you, but you have to remember, I'm one of like, in my class right now, I'm one of 7 staff.
Yeah. So
that's 7 opportunities for somebody to call CPS on you, and so I try to be as open as I can, but it's awkward. It sucks. It's not fun. And I mean, I just wish people didn't abuse their kids. So we have to do it,
Simple solution here, guys.
Yeah, just keep your hands off your fucking kids.
That would be great.
Yeah.
Story time. When Staci wore a diaper for Valentine's Day to dress up as Cupid. So Millie sent that in. That was her little story about you. I know we already brought that up, but I thought that was funny.
That was fun. I didn't have to go to the bathroom all day.
What makes a good day at school?
Oh my gosh, a good day at school. I mean, I want to say when everything goes right, but that really doesn't ever happen. That doesn't exist.
When most things go right.
Yeah. I think to be honest, I have like 90% more good days than I have bad days. I think I have bad moments where I'm like, this is fucking bullshit. I mean, I had a little meltdown with my boss like before spring break where I was like, yo, how much more do you think I could take? Like, I don't have the mental capacity to do anything else.
Yeah.
But then that moment, she heard me, she let me listen or let me speak. And then we thought of some solutions, and to be honest, it didn't take a lot of my plate, but like she heard me and I moved on. And it's like a good day really is just like, I love any day that we do social stuff. I love to connect with the staff in other classrooms because we're such a small campus. I feel like that connection like drives me, Yeah. So a good day too is like doing little events with my kids. I'm really excited because we have a lot of donations from the Seas Candy, which thank you for contributing.
Of course.
Well, we one of my teachers next to me, Miss May, she has a friend who's like has like a company where she's like a fairy and she does bubble shows. So for our end of the year, I'm pumped than anybody. End of the year, we're doing like this. She comes in with those big like bubbles, and so we're doing.
Stacey's excited scream is.
I was so excited. So that's going to be a good day. Water days, as much as I hate water days, everybody who knows me knows I hate water days. Like the kids have fun, and I think days like the weather today, when the kids get to go outside and just watching them just be like, they could be running aimlessly and they're just pumped. Like that's a good day.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Has a parent ever gone rogue on you?
Oh yeah. My first year teaching, I had, I started my first year teaching like mid-September. So it was already about a month and a half into the school year, a little less. And I dealt with very machismo dad who was going through a divorce. So that's a lot of what teachers deal with too, that people don't talk about. We deal with a lot of co-parenting situations, which fucking suck.
Yeah, I bet.
Because if parents are not on the same page, or if one parent is bitter, as this man was towards, the wife, or vice versa, dealing with like the new step parent or the new parent's girlfriend, I have to deal with that shit now, and it sucks. I had a dad. I had already gotten coached from my director on how to like handle it, which, I was in the restaurant industry. It wasn't something I couldn't handle, but it just wouldn't stop. And I think Staci 10 years ago was a little quicker to be like, fuck you, than, it's fresh out of the bartending industry. And we just weren't vibing. And she coached me to kind of just let him speak and just say, okay, I hear you. That actually escalated him more because he felt like I was being condescending. So
I don't think anything you said would have been
anything. Like, I damn near had to pull his wiener and for him to be happy, right? So like anything I said was going to piss him off. And I took her advice because she was my director and I was a fresh teacher. I think looking back, I would have trusted my own instinct on how to handle it because he's Mexican like me and I know the culture and I know the machismo that we deal with all the time. So he stepped in my space. He said, I don't like what you're saying, and stepped up to me. And I said, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. Where I come from, that's a threat. And you don't want to know what's going to happen next. So you need to back up. And he got closer to me and I said, I'm giving you one more warning before it's going to get and to be honest with you, in that moment, I was like, I'm risking it all.
Yeah.
Because you're first of all, you're a man stepping up to me. Let's start.
Which is such a bitch ass move.
Such a bitch move. And he was a bitch. I would have knocked him out. But like, it just was annoying. So then finally he could see I wasn't going to back down and he walked away. So like, yes, that's probably the most rogue story I've had. I had a parent last year where I had a kid for 2 years. I had her kid and his attendance was so bad. This kid had probably top 3 most aggressive behaviors I've ever dealt with. I'm talking like treating me like, the Spanish, like, what are they called? The matadors or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That's how he treated me. I mean, he would come at us, a million Kalikas says too, come at us full head. I mean, this kid was 4 and he was probably 95 pounds. Fuck. I mean, and not just a chunky boy, but like a big solid kid. I mean, hit you, punch you. You would be looking at him. He would just full on crack you in the face. And I kind of helped transition him into the class he's in now. And mom was telling people like called CPS on her, which I didn't. I should have, but I didn't. That's a regret for sure. But like dealing with that kind of stuff, where it's like you feel like you're on the same team. And I feel like being honest and straightforward and direct with parents has been helpful. But then you get those parents, they don't see what you've done. They only see, they don't see what their contribution is. They only look at like what I didn't do. And it's like, well, ma'am, I can't raise your kid in 2 hours and 40 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And he's here 1 day a week. Like I need him to be here every day. And even in that 2 hours and 40 minutes, I can't, you got to be on the same team.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of what we deal with the parents going rogue. It's always going to be us. They're going to blame us. And you got to just kind of play the game,
I think that's tough too, even in general ed, where there's parents that like think that it's the teacher's complete responsibility to raise that child. Like they have no like respect, no respect and manners because of you, not because of the 6-7 hours they spent in this class. Like, it's so stupid.
I mean, to be honest with you, I've said it on here multiple times. I don't follow professionalism rules that some old white dude made up 100 years ago. So for me, if I'm not cursing at my parents, if I'm not saying like shady, snappy things, I'll tell them straight up. If they're talking to me in a way I don't like, I'll say, hey, listen, I think we both need to take a break from this conversation because the way you're speaking to me is inappropriate and I don't appreciate it. And if I've had parents follow me and I'll just walk in my class and lock my door because I'm like, it doesn't happen to me very often because I have such a good rapport with my parents and I communicate so directly. There's no need to there's no fluff in between, right? It's just like, this is what it is. What are your thoughts? And it really was special ed. And I think gen ed too, you have to be on the same team. Like my overall goal is to enrich the quality of the life for not only my student, but their families.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, let me help you. And you don't have to take all my advice. We always go back to the drawing board, but if you're not going to be on the same team as me, then I'm going to only control what I can, and that's in the classroom. That's it.
But at that time, like, then put your kid somewhere else that you feel like is going to be a better fit for you. If you're not going to trust and you're going to just push back on someone that is trying to help and make a difference in you and your family's life, like, then kick rocks, go somewhere else. Like
my old motto I used to say just to like my teacher friends, like, oh, you think you can do our job, then fucking homeschool your kids.
Yeah,
that's what happened. COVID happened. How many kids are being homeschooled now? Because parents understand it is a very hard job.
Yep.
Go play with a toddler for more than 15 minutes and then come talk to me. It is hard as shit.
What's funny is this next question is, how was teaching preschoolers on the spectrum over Zoom during the pandemic?
Oh my God. To be honest with you, for me, it wasn't as bad. It was more work because it's like, oh, you have 3 days to create a Google Classroom, figure out how you're going to teach these kids, a schedule. I think that myself and my parents at the time kind of figured it out because I do feel like, you know, in SPED, you have to have a lot of meetings, you have IEPs, we're in constant contact. And sometimes parents are like, give me the fucking meat and potatoes and keep it moving. I don't want to do all this. So you really have to like read the room. And I sent out a survey with my parents because, you know, my campus, we do an AM and a PM class. And I told my parents, would it be easier overall if I just do 1 direct hour of teaching and then give you an option for like an extra time slot later? And my parents were like, yep. And this was not what my district wanted me to do. Nobody said shit to me because at the end of the day, I had no unhappy parents. It was easier for them. They actually had access to more peers because I would put them in breakout rooms versus, you know, my AM class is 6 kids, my PM class is 6 kids. They had 12 kids then. So it's like they had more access to their other friends, and it worked for parents. It's like, cool, we're on for an hour and then we're done for the day. And if, you know, they would text me or be like, hey, can we get on and do blah, blah, blah? I'd be like, sure.
Yeah.
You know, so it's always available, but I think we did what we had to do as far as COVID because we didn't know what COVID was. I think what we're seeing now, big time, especially with my service providers, is the impact of distance learning. Last year was a nightmare. This year's getting better. I'm hoping next year's even better, but like it just didn't work. It didn't work.
I think we're feeling that as a country.
Society. Yeah. Big time. It's crazy.
Yeah. Mark would like to know if you've ever been farted on.
No, but he has. Yeah, I've been farted on, of course. I've been farted on. I have kids wipe shit on me like at least 5 times a year. I get peed on.
Yuck.
Like it's like anything. Diaper. A lot of my kids, for some reason, like to put their hand in their booty and wipe it on me. That's why a lot of times when people are like, do you want to do something at 4 o'clock after work? I'm like, honestly, it depends on my day. But if I get fucking booty juice wiped on me, I need a shower.
I need a hot fucking shower.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like I have to change the clothes in my car at all times because that's just working with little kids. Like diapers leak. Kids, I get spit on by kids that are in behaviors all the time. Like it's just what it is. Boogers.
You have the strongest immunity of anyone that I've ever met.
No shit. During COVID, Kate was like, I have never in 7 years seen you as sick as you've been. I'm like, because I'm masked up and I'm not at school.
Yeah.
Like
I'm getting shit thrown in my face.
It's freaking April. It's almost May. Like I'm good because I'm around so many germs, you know?
Yeah. Another story time for Millie. 4-year-old drew him and I asked what the stick between my legs was, and he said my eggplant emoji.
Yep. That sounds about right.
Do you use any forms of modern day technology to aid in accessibility and or accommodation for your kids?
Yeah, so we do. I have one student that's on an iPad for her communication. So for my communication system in class, I use, which is considered, it's called AAC, a PEX book, a picture exchange communication system. It's basically like 2-inch icons that is individualized to each kid. They carry it around if they need it, if they're nonverbal, not for everybody, but they'll exchange the icon with me and then I give them what they want. And it's super complicated. It really goes into like the exchange is the basic part, traveling to the partner is the second part, discriminating amongst pictures. So pretty much every kid I have is on a PEX book. And then I have one student that's on an iPad. Her PEX book's on her iPad. And then I use a smartboard every day for my PowerPoint. So that's probably been the most effective tool I've had since coming back from COVID, because I feel like a lot of our kids were just on a screen all day long, right? Parents were in survival mode, like no judgment. So from when I came back and was doing my traditional circle time, they were like, nothing was happening. Kids were running off. It was not happening. So I do a PowerPoint where I still read a physical book, which parents, if you're listening, is so important. Like, do not stop reading books to your kids. That's the biggest thing. I still do a physical book. We still do a lot of what we call dialogical reading, which is like pointing out things in the book, describing the environment, having them turn the page to follow directions, imitate. If we see like a chicken or a duck, we'll imitate it, shit like that, like little kid stuff. But using the smartboard has been really helpful because now, positives of COVID, all these programs that are out, like Epic Books.
Yeah.
We do boom cards, which like I have like hands down my speech therapist, Mickey. Like I think I could get 50 people from my campus on here to co-sign this. He's just amazing. He's an amazing human being and a friend, but he's also just such a good speech therapist. I like love watching him with the kids because he just gets pure joy when he gets this response that he's looking for.
No.
And he runs this really cool circle time. At the beginning of the year, I was like, "Oh, Mickey, we have to cut this down, bro." Like,
hey, Mickey.
yeah. By like 10 minutes in, kids are going fucking wild. But now it's like we trimmed it a little bit, and he does this game right now. It was Garden Week or Earth Day last week. That was our theme. That's like Elmo's Garden. So he like basically picks the kids based on like who's verbalizing my turn, who's raising their hands. He does all these really cool ways of like, okay, like who wants to water the garden? And they come up to this smart board, and it's this program where they like push a water can and they water it. And the sun goes down. He's like, cha, cha, cha. Like, it's just all this cool stuff that like, that's kind of the positive of COVID, all these programs that came out that the kids, we have to know moving forward, iPads are a thing.
Yeah.
Kids are on screens. It's rare I've ever had a student that doesn't own an iPad or like a Kindle or something.
Well, and to just circle back to earlier, like we have parents that are having to work, 10, 12, 14-hour days. It's almost unreasonable to think that they're not putting their kids in front of some screens to help aid in like some quiet time.
Yeah, give them a freaking hour. So yeah, that's what I use.
Cool. What boundaries do you set for your work-life balance? Which I think you kind of touched on it, but is there anything you want to add?
The biggest thing that I've done that my mom and actually a former colleague like really helps me with is in ABA, we call it shaping behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I shape my parents' behavior. So I allow every parent I have has my personal cell phone number. It doesn't make sense for me to do a Google Voice, go check my messages, or them to call my classroom because I'm teaching, right? I can't talk to them. But if they have my personal cell phone, I can choose when I'm going to communicate. So good example, I have a little girl who's been sick a lot. Her mom will text me at like 6. She beats me to my alarm every day. She will not get a response from me until I get to work at 8 a.m. Or if I'm driving to work at 8 a.m., I'll text her. Like I'm available between 8 and 3:30, Monday through Friday. Yep. If you text me at 3:31 on Friday and Monday's spring break, you will hear from me the Monday after spring break.
Yeah.
That's the biggest boundary that I keep. I also try not to take work home. If I have to work on my lunch, I'll do that versus bringing work home. Once I'm home, I'm home. And my mom really stressed this to me. My mom was like, try not to bring your work home. I'm not saying there's not times I have to do it. I'm in my like super busy season right now with IEPs and triennials. So I am having to bring stuff home. But I really, that's the biggest thing for new teachers. Delegate, that's a boundary. People say like that's kind of crazy, that's a boundary for you. I'm like, that's a boundary for me because if my staff are prepping for me, I have the option of working on other things. A lot of paraeducators don't understand what teachers do. We're doing their job on top of paperwork. It's a lot of paperwork as a teacher, so that's another big boundary. Like you're gonna prep for me, and a lot of them don't like it, but it just is what it is. So yeah,
JJ, good boundaries. Thank you. Yeah. I need to enlist some of those. What is the greatest challenge facing teachers today?
Oh my God. I mean, the teacher hate. Like, can we just stop with that shit? I thought that after COVID, people would have a better understanding. Like, I think the teacher hate, I think administrators understanding and hearing us when we say, like I'm tapped out.
Yeah.
Like I said, my boss is amazing. She's not so far from removed from the classroom that she gets it. And she really tries to accommodate us while also saying like, we have to get this done. But there's a lot of admin, especially people who come straight out of college who have never taught before and just go straight into like a principal role. It's like, dude, that's like being going straight to being like I know family members who are like hostess who try to tell server shit. It's like, girl, you never even served before. You have no idea what we're going through. Or like a nurse, which this happens a lot, I think, in the medical field, who's never been a CNA.
Yeah.
You never wiped an old man's ass. You don't know. Like it's really a lot, you know? So I think that there's some student teachers I have on campus that have this like idealistic classroom that they're creating in their mind. And I'm like, you know, the first day of my credential program, I had a teacher that said, don't worry about the book. There's not a book that's ever going to teach you how to wipe a kid's ass. And he's an adult ed teacher. And I'm like, that is the realest shit I've ever heard. And I tell every new teacher that.
Yeah.
Like, there's no book that's going to train you how to do stuff that's like, they're going to give you the data and all the bullshit research, but that's not always realistic, you know?
Yeah. It's funny because I have a specialist that I help support that he's one of 52 of that type of specialists that I help support. And he always has these ideas of how we should be staffing. And I'm like, you've never had to staff 52 doctors just like yourself. So the ideas that you have are great, but they're just ideas. And like we leave it to our supervisors and managers that do the staffing every single day to make the most sense of it. Like you can have your ideas, but that's not the real world that you're living in. Those people are not available on those days. Just because you know that those are people doesn't mean you can plug them in everywhere. There's like a system. And so it's funny. Just the
so like
that we have.
That's exactly how it is. Like imagine talking to somebody who knows nothing about like your specialty, we're in a specialty dental field, who has never experienced that, and them being your boss.
Yeah.
That's how it is when you're at a school. And I have not experienced this, but like talking to my friends who are on a gen ed camp or like on an elementary campus, talking to a principal who knows nothing about SPED. Like, why are we even allowing anybody that's in any type of admin credential program to not take like an extended course or do hours in a freaking SPED classroom? Like,
it makes no sense.
It makes no sense. How are you going to tell me shit you don't know anything about? So my big retort has been for situations like that. You know, I'm a visual learner, so if you could model that for me, I'd really appreciate it. And then it shuts them down real quick. It's like,
I'm using that shit on Monday because I know his ass is going to be calling me.
I'm like, leave me alone.
What has turnover for teachers in your school generally been like?
So my school, it hasn't been too bad. I think there were some people that needed to move on that finally did, and it's made a big difference. But my school's not been too bad. As far as my district, I know we opened a new program last year that just wasn't working. And so there's going to be a lot of turnover next year for that specific program. But I think I want to say, I should have looked this up. I know that teachers are leaving the field at record numbers.
Yeah, that's record. I mean, I'm not even in that field, and I just like what I've been hearing about it is it's bonkers.
Record numbers. I mean, so like for just perspective, we do, let's say 100 assessments a year. Even through the summer, we have like an opportunity to make money to do assessments. I think this year, that probably times 10. Shit. I mean, we're just getting like the population they say it's decreasing. I don't know where, because not in California.
Yeah.
And we just are getting a crazy amount of kids. I mean, we've opened in the past 2 months, like 3 or 4 classrooms. That's how many kids we had to open because of the assessments. And it's April. We're in the finish line. I'm like 36 days away from being done.
The only positive that I can see from that is that people are seeking help early on.
Yes.
Whereas like now parents are more educated, and these programs have been proven to work. And so that's the positive to it. But then like, we don't have enough people to support that.
Yeah.
You know,
well, that's the thing too, is why would to be honest, why would any smart person get into a field where when you break our pay down, you're making like $12 an hour, right? On top of, I'm doing probably the work of 6 people, because that's just what teaching is. You're responsible for the safety of these kids first and foremost. That's the number one thing. On top of, if you have a little kid who has crazy behaviors, which is another realistic factor for special ed, we always have kids that have behaviors. Then we're having to communicate with parents, admin, service providers constantly. On top of writing as a case manager, I'm writing IEPs, training staff. People forget about that.
Yeah.
Training staff I have staff in the past that I had trained for a whole year and still didn't generalize what I was trying to tell them. I mean, it's so frustrating. And then I have staff that I've had a lot of staff that are amazing. Like, it just depends. So it's the work of 6 different people. I mean, it's way harder than when I was a restaurant manager. I had to deal with assholes doing that, you know, but people are like, teachers can make $80,000 to $90,000 a year. It's like, break that down though by the hour.
Yeah.
That ain't shit anymore compared to, you know, what it's like to live.
100%. And then the summers off for some programs does not even begin to make up for that.
Everybody always wants to bring our breaks up. But you guys have
That's
breaks.
what I mean. That's why I wanted to call it out.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to
Oh,
call
like
it out.
come and I remember like my first year, I always tell the story, but my probably first or second year of teaching, Bridget came to have lunch with me at ABC. And I said, oh, well, I have like 15 more minutes. You got to just come to my class and then we'll leave. She came in, she maybe lasted 5 to 10 minutes. Just said, I gotta go, dude. I can't. I don't know how you do this every day.
Oh, wait, I'll be in the
She left
car,
me.
man.
Yeah. Okay. She left me.
You broke Bridget. She hasn't been the same since.
I'm the reason I broke her.
You broke Bridget.
But real talk, like it's crazy, you know?
It is absolutely nuts. I know we're getting tight on time, so I have one more question, and then however you want to end this, you can end it. But what are some traditions or superstitions you have for the first day of school and the last day of school?
Oh, that's a really good question. Traditions or superstitions? Traditions, I always make sure I get my parents get a picture with their kids.
That's so
because
cute.
it's crazy how quick they grow.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big tradition I really like to do. I always like to feed my staff on the first day, if not the day before we get kids, because we always get them like one day before. I always like try to throw as much food at them. I like to do like a getting to know you, like a piece of paper, because I can't remember everybody's shit, but like I always like to know like simple things. What's their favorite color? Do they want coffee or a smoothie? Do they like, you know, what's their sports teams? Like when's their birthday? That type of shit. Because it's like those types of things I think as a leader make things special just to get recognized, you know?
Yeah.
So I like to do that. I like to kind of go in with like, what's your personal flaw? Are you here? Like, keep it real. Are you here because you want summers off? Are you here because you like love kids? Are you here because you're trying to figure out if you want to be a teacher or not? Like, what's the deal? So I like to start with that. Superstitions. I don't know. I honestly don't have any. The only superstitions I have are about gambling. So I don't think I have superstitions.
Do you have any like end of the school year traditions?
I like to not do a lot the last week. I think just like slide into our summer break. Like our last week this year is 3 days. We done on Wednesday. So like tons of outside play, clean while the staff's inside, really like deep cleaning the class in preparation of being gone for a couple months.
Getting all the butt juice and boogers off.
Exactly. Like taking things off my walls, doing that type of stuff. But mostly just like letting the kids just end the school year having fun.
That's good.
Making sure like I like to go heavy on the art projects the last month, so that parents like have a ton of art from the month of May, you know. That's a big thing because parents love art, and they love just knowing their kids even being exposed to like their own child-led art. We have this like idea in our mind of like how the project's going to turn out, and it never does. Like eyeballs are over here, things. But like I love to do a lot of heavy art because parents love it, and I normally do this thing where I have like the wire with the clothespins. So like for the month of May, I'll display all of that, and then when it's like June 1st, I take it all down and send it home.
That's cute.
Yeah, I do that for every month because it's like I want my class. The biggest thing I want is my class to look like a class.
Yeah.
I've been in classrooms where I'm like, was this a fucking prison? Like, poster up? Like, what the fuck?
Is this a hospital operating room?
So I guess like not really a superstition, but like a tradition is I really want my classroom to look like a classroom.
Yeah.
I had a really good para who was like great at being creative. And so I'm the jungle room and it looks like a jungle in my class. Like, literally, she made a safari jeep. She did all these things that just really like was my vision. So it's perfect.
And you're a cougar, so it just makes the most sense.
Yes, I am.
All right. Anything else you want to highlight about teaching? Thank you, first of all, for being the amazing teacher that you are and helping make a difference in our society and world.
Thank you. It's really fun. My advice to future teachers, I mean, shit, I can go on a rant about that, but be a para first. Go be a para educator for a year or however long you last. You might not even last that long. And just see if it's what you want to do. You know, get a mentor that you like. That's always the thing I do. I lock down somebody that I observe for a month or so and say, like, I like the way they interact with the kids. I like the way they interact with staff. And I'll ask them, hey, can you kind of like guide me professionally? Like, I have no shame in asking questions. I have no shame in asking the same question over and over because that's how I process. I think that a lot of what gets people by in every profession is personality. So don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Right. Like come to school and say hi to everybody. Come to your campus and even if somebody doesn't greet you every day, greet them. That's a big thing. I think that this last 2 years, I've gotten so much love back, and I feel like I've been putting a lot of love into the world for a long time, and I'm really receiving it. So that feels good. And then for parents, just have honest communication with your teacher. But remember, some days we're going to forget to send the water bottle home. Some days your kid took a huge shit on the bus and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm sorry, that's how they came home.
Yeah.
Right. But like, give us the benefit of the doubt that we always have your kid's best interest in mind, because we do. It's why we're in the field. And it's, like I said, it's a lot of times a thankless job. We love receiving little recognitions. Like, it could be a verbal, like, hey, I see how hard you've been working. I appreciate it. That goes such a long way. Because I will tell you,
a trip to Cabo as well. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm into that. But like, I think with I can only speak for my campus, but like, I work with an exceptional team of teachers. I mean, truly, like, I'm in awe and I'm in awe of a lot of the staff, even the service providers, everybody. So I can't speak. I know there are some bad teachers, and I think that people forget, like, as adults, we've experienced that too.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So like, go easy on your teacher. If you're unhappy, you always have the right to have a meeting, at least in special ed, and you always have the right to like speak up. So yeah.
Cool.
Just go easy on us.
Leave them alone.
Leave us alone. It's hard. It's fucking hard, man.
Well, it was very nice meeting you and getting to know you, Staci. Staci Ruiz.
Yeah.
All right. I will see you in 1 hour and 15 minutes.
All right. Thank you.
Goodbye. Life is a beautiful mess. A beautiful mess.